Hello YouTube, I'm Arend Peter, and today I'm going to make a little tutorial about animation curves and color. So in a previous tutorial I made a knockback animation. You ran into these little imp guys, and now we're going to be augmenting that to add a little bit of a flash of red to show the pain of our player. So there you go. Using animation curves, we're going to draw that little red animation on top of our player. Let's get into it. Alright, here we are. So first off, before I forget, the code is in the description if you want to see my starting point, but if you don't, then I'm going to walk you through it real quick. So there are two soft prerequisites tutorials where this code comes from. One is the knockback tutorial, which I referred to earlier, and the other is my animation curves tutorial. I'm going to be covering most of the same stuff as the animation curves tutorial. It's just that I'm going to be going through the animation curves content about 20% faster in this tutorial. So over here on the right, I have a bunch of sprites and tile sets from the knockback tutorial. Objects just feature the player and the Goomba. And then the main thing from the animation curves is I have the StepTowards function, which I'll be going over later. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add an animation curve for our flash of red. So the animation curve is going to start at 1, which is basically going to be the transparency of the red layer, and it's going to go down to 0. But I think it looks better if it goes like this. So it looks like a sudden spike of red, then it quickly goes down. So I'm going to bias it in this direction, and they're going to make it smooth to make it a nice curve. So it should be pretty simple. I'm going to call this anim color, then we're going to hop over to the player. So now we want to implement that curve, and there's a couple of variables the player is going to need. Going to have cx and cy, which represents the x and y position along the curve, and then we're going to have damage seconds, which is how quickly we go through the curve. Okay, so we're going to actually have our cx start at 1 because if we look at our curve, 1 represents the end when the alpha of the red layer is at 0. Right, whenever we get hurt, we're going to reset to 0, which restarts the animation, and it's going to keep going until it reaches the end of the animation. Just stay there until it gets reset again. Hi, it's me from the future. I have GameMaker Beta open right now, and I wanted to quickly show you how you would do this same thing using the animation libraries feature that's going to be available in future releases of GameMaker. So if we wanted to do that same quick decay effect, we'd start off with just doing 1 to 0 as did previously, except we go into Bezier mode, and then we could choose between these presets. And in this case, we can do cubic with ease out, so fast then slow down. And then of course you could change it to one of these other ones if you want it to be a little bit more extreme. But ease, cubic, or expo, those all should work. So I'm going to go into the player, and then in the step event, let's look at where we get hurt. That actually happens right about here in my Goomba interaction, so we don't really need to worry about this horizontal or vertical movement. We just need to worry about the Goomba interaction. When that happens, we want to set our cx to 0. And on top of all this, I want to add some animation logic. So we set our cx to 0, and then we're going to increase it to 1 to go through the animation. And that's going to look like this. Okay, so this is where I use the StepTowards function, so I'll go ahead and explain that. So this has 3 inputs, the current, target, and step. So the current is where our current position of the variable is. The target is where we want it to go to, so we want our cx variable to go to 1. And then the step is how much we adjust it by to reach the target. So in this case, our damage seconds is 1. Room speed is 30 steps per second rather. So here it says we want to get there in 30 steps. So if we want to get there in 30 steps, then we need to step by 1 over 30 steps, 1/30th of a step every step. Then we get there in 30 steps. Cool. Now that we got that set up, let's go into the draw. And let me just go ahead and show you how to put like a red filter over your character. So some of you might not know that. I actually learned this quite recently. So the key function here is GPU set fog. So this is usually used in 3D games in order to create a fog effect where things that are further away get like this faded color layer over it. But it works really great in 2D games too when you want to put like just mask your sprite with a color. So we're going to have it enabled. We're going to have it enabled with the color red, and we're just going to do 0 and 1 for the start and end parameters. I don't really understand what those mean, but and if we did 3D then we probably would, but for 2D I don't really need to understand what they mean. Then we're going to set that to false, and then in between we're going to just draw self. So this will draw ourself, but it will be drawn with like as if we had like a thick red fog drawn over us. So there you go. That gives an idea of what our function does. And now we are going to use the animation curve to fade between this version of the player and the other version of the player. Okay, so I'm going to have two layers here. I'm going to have, first we're going to draw the player normally, then we're going to draw the player red. But when we're drawing it red, we are going to set the alpha of this to be according to our animation curve. So I'm going to go ahead and add the animation logic over here. So whenever you're working with animation curves, there's two functions that you're going to use. First, you're going to get the channel, that one. So we're getting the channel of our anim color curve. And then the next parameter is the channel name or index. So we're going to do 0 to indicate the 0th channel, because we only have a single channel, so 0 refers to the first one. That gives the channel, which we're going to store in the ch variable. Then the next function you need to know about animation curves is this evaluate function, which will pass it the channel and the x position you want to evaluate on the channel, and then it'll give us the corresponding y position on the curve. So here I'm going to say cy equals that. Okay, so I'm calling this cy for the sake of the convention, but in reality that's going to be our image alpha. So I'm going to set image alpha equal to cy, and then over here I'm going to set image alpha equal to 1 just as a reset. Just so you know, a lot of times when you're drawing, you'll use the draw set alpha, which is what I did when I was initially drafting this tutorial, but draw self actually relies on your image alpha. So that's something specific to draw self that makes it a little bit different. Okay, are we good? Did we do this? Let's try this out. I should also add an asterisk that I'm not sure how performant it is to have these functions in the draw event. A lot of times if you have performance heavy code, you want to do it in the step event. So I could just as easily do this in the step event, but for now I'm just doing it in draw event because it's convenient. Okay, there's a Goomba. Boom, there we go. That looks great. This is like a very easy effect to add, and it adds a lot to your game. Like aesthetically and like practically, you want your player to know when they're getting hurt, so this is a great way to kind of communicate that. Alrighty, okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, I could end the tutorial right here, but there's something else that I want to talk about, which is how you can have animation curves use all of the different color channels. So because animation curves can have multiple channels, I thought this was a great opportunity to have it correlate to the red, green, blue alpha channels. So I wanted to kind of show you how you can use that to cycle through different colors. And I want to clarify, this is purely for like teaching pedagogical purposes, because I think the final effect we get out of using multiple colors doesn't actually look as good as the quick and simple red, but just to give you options. Okay, so we're going to jump into anim color. Previously we just did one curve, but that's actually our alpha channel. So I'm going to make some more curves, and because these correlate so nicely with the RGBA, or channels, I'm going to name them accordingly. So the blue one is going to be called blue, the red channel is going to be called red, green is going to be called green, and this yellow one is going to be the alpha. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this yellow channel to match what we did with the original alpha channel. Then we're going to adjust the other ones as well. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we're going to start it off at red. So when we initially have this little animation, we're going to have it be red. So I'm going to go ahead and make the other ones invisible and then go to my red channel. So I want the red channel to start at 1. Okay, great. Then I want, instead of just fading away, I want to actually fade to yellow. So here, like halfway through, I want red to be at up there, and then I want yellow. Let's see, actually, which is not the alpha channel. Remember, if you're looking at red, green, blue spectrum, yellow is actually the combination of red and green. So I'm going to enable green, and I'm going to have green start out at 0 because we want it to start out at red. And then once we get over here, I want it to kind of be combined. And I want red to have all the glory for a little bit, so I'm going to have green kind of do that deal. Okay, and then at the end of the animation, maybe we'll have it like flash blue for a little bit. So this could also be used practically in your game if you have like a long, if the player is damaged for a long time, if they have like a multiple second period where they can't do anything, it could be nice to have a little flash at the end to kind of signal to the player, okay, the player is no longer in the damaged state, you can do things again. So we're going to add a flash of blue right at the end, like so, and of course in order for this to look truly blue, we need the red and greens to go away, so I'm going to kind of do that accordingly here. And then in order to see that blue flash, right here the alpha is actually really low, so I need the alpha to kind of not go down quite as fast. Maybe we'll have it go down quickly initially, but then kind of level out and then go down. So this looks like kind of a mess, but as you'll see, we have a lot of power in here. We have a lot of information we can work with. Actually, I'm going to make this blue go a little bit like that, so we have more of a spike of blue. So now let me implement it, and hopefully it'll look a little bit cool. We'll see. So I'm going to go over to back to the player. Then we'll implement that over here. So instead of CY, I'm going to call that A, and then I essentially need to duplicate this over and over again to get red, green, blue. But I've found that whenever I need to duplicate it, it's sometimes easier to make a function. So I'm going to make a function. I'm going to call it getColor, and then I'm going to take color name as the parameter. And that's essentially just going to do this deal. So the channel is going to be the NM color, and then here we can pass in color name. For example, I'm going to be calling getColor red, blue, green, etc. So this is these strings I pass in will correlate to the name of the channel, and then when we evaluate, it will be evaluating the channel and evaluate CX. So we can just leave CX there, and then there'll be some other things that come up, but I'll just return YY for now, just for the sake of moving forward. So for get alpha, for image alpha, we actually want to set that to the getColor alpha. And then instead of setting C red here, you want to set that to some sort of color based on these red, blue, green channels. So I'm going to say var color, and let me clean this up now that I've sufficiently explained that. So I'm going to create this color variable, I'm going to set to make color RGB, and then we're going to be passing in all of the 3 color channels that we've via getColor. So it'll be getColor red, and then the same deal for blue and green. Okay, now's where I got to make some updates to getColor. So if we click into make color RGB using the F1 command, if we do that, you can see that this expects numbers between 0 and 255, which is a problem because our animation channel only goes from 0 to 1. So we could change this by redoing our animation and just changing the range here to go to 255 and just rescaling them, but that sounds tedious. So I'm going to just make a change in the code. And another thing I want to mention about this before I make change to the code is if let's say I make this range 0 to 1, you can see here that it actually goes outside of that range at various points. Here the green goes below, red goes above, and that's because we set it to smooth. So we're going to need to also account for that in addition to scaling it better. So I'm going to go back to the player, and then here we got to make some adjustments to YY. So first off, I want to clamp it to 0 to 1. So we want to make sure that if it's above 1, just clamp at 1. If it's below 0, clamp at 0. This will avoid weird color effects of going below or above the 255. So that's how that works. Then we're going to take that value, which is now strictly between 0 and 1, and multiply by 255 to get us in the right range. And there we go. Okay, color, and here we use color. I think we're set. Let's see how this looks. I have a feeling preemptively that it's going to be hard to see all the stuff we just did in the 1 second, so I'm going to temporarily set that to something much higher, and then we can reel it back down later. Okay, so we get hurt. Very interesting. So the alpha didn't seem to work at all there. Let me see why that was the case. Oh, because alpha doesn't need to be between 0 and 55. These guys need to be between 0 and 255. How do we do this? Okay, I'm gonna move this times 255 and just put it in front of these guys instead. Let's do that. All right. Alpha seemed to work much better there. Okay, so I was expecting it to start at red, but it seems to have started at like yellow. So let's see what I did wrong there. I'm not sure why it started at yellow, because green's at 0, red is at 1. And there should be like a solid like fraction of a second where it's doing that, so very strange. Oh, I see. I have blue at 1. Blue needs to be at 0 for that first point. Silly blue. Okay. Let's bump you way down. All the way over here. Not even sure why you're not there. So now the first 2 points there should be at 0. Wait, I want to change that for blue actually. Alright, excellent. No, blue. I said blue. There. First 2 data points need to be up to 0 there. Alright, that's a little bit embarrassing. Hopefully I didn't make the previous explanation of these curves too confusing. Like, why is he having blue at 1 the whole time? Okay. I think that's better. Okay, so it's red, then kind of turns yellowy, and then you see it go blue at the end. Red, yellow, blue. Excellent. One thing I think I want to change is it didn't look actually yellow. It looked like it was still, the red was still kind of transitioning out. Let me see if there's a way to fix that. It might be because this blue channel is not quite at 0, it's already started to increase. So we want it to actually be at 0 for this third point as well. So now it should be closer to pure yellow over here. Another thing I can look at is, okay, that's 1. Maybe the red needs to be at 1 for its second data point, so that point should be pure yellow. Maybe I can even extend the channel a little bit. Like I want this to be yellow a little bit, teensy bit longer. So maybe I'll just do this. If I do that, maybe it'll stay at yellow a teensy bit longer. Okay, let's give that a shot. Okay, I'll take it. Okay. Now let's go back to the player. Again, how many times have I said that today? Go back to the player. And I'll change this damage seconds to 1. And I think that should look pretty good. And I really like how the blue kind of flashes at the end. Not really sure why it's green, but we'll move past that. Yeah, I really like how that flashes at the end, kind of signaling that you're free to go again. If this was an actual game, I would time the animation to be timed with the window where I can't move, but it's much longer than that still. Do I need to go back and fix this animation curve again? Maybe I need the green and red to chill faster so that the blue can have its glory. Still kind of looks like it's flashing green. Oh, I I have a theory. RGB. Okay, that's embarrassing. Those need to be flipped. That also explains why the yellow didn't look quite right. Okay. Okay, now I want to undo some of the other things I did. Oh, now that I have the colors right, this prolonging of it doesn't look quite right. Alright, now I think we should be good. I'm so sorry for all of the back and forth here, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of the process. Still feeling stronger yellow vibes and blue vibes. Maybe I need to go back and delete these guys too. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of a taste of the animation curves. I'm not going to polish the full color spectrum one any further because I don't think it's a good idea anyway. I think it looks better with just the red. And I think I made my point on how you can mess around with colors like this. So that is all for this tutorial. So before you leave, I wanted to kind of mention that this is part of a series where I take this basic platformer series that I did, and I try and pack it with as many animation curves as I can to make it look good. So feel free to check that out. And another kind of theme in that series is at the end I like to recommend an Alan Becker video featuring a principle of animation. However, I couldn't really think of a good principle of animation to go along with this tutorial, but I still wanted to use this time to recommend something, so let me go ahead and do that. So whenever I'm on YouTube and I want to find my YouTube channel, particularly when I'm not signed into my Arend Peter Teacher's YouTube channel, sometimes I find the easiest to just search it on YouTube, which works out fine because for the most part, or previously, I've been like the only Arend Peter out there, or at least for as far as I knew. And then I searched it and I found out there's another Arend Peter on YouTube, which kind of blew my mind. So I looked him up, I was curious, and he sings German dance music. And I listened to some of his songs, and I think he's actually pretty good. And I think he deserves more than 307 subscribers. So wanted to recommend him here as a shout out, and please check him out. Gotta support my fellow Arend Peters out there. So that's all for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the future animation curve tutorials.